Good evening, good evening. We're skipping the song. We usually do a song beforehand, but that's okay. People are coming in. Everybody's watching the sky, it sounds like. Is it looking stormy and weird out there? Is it all right? Yeah. Did it? Yeah, yeah, that part. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming out. This is Hope Dealers. For you watching online or for anyone new here tonight, welcome. This is a high therapeutic class, and we talk about anything that has to do with trauma, abuse, addiction, and just plain recovery. We all need to recover from something, huh? And anytime that we've been touched by sin or we participated in it, it uncovers who we really are. And makes a mess of things. And so God brings his covering back onto us, not to hide us, not so we can't be real, but he puts that covering of his glory on us, and we're able to be safe once again. Because we have learned that to get out of any type of trauma or to get healing in any way, you have to be safe. You have to feel safe enough to believe. You have to feel safe enough to move forward. You have to feel safe enough to apply any knowledge that you do have. I mean, you can be a brainiac and know all kinds of stuff, but if you don't feel safe, you ain't moving. Like you're stuck. You're just froze there. We've talked about that before. So you have to have safety. You have to have knowledge. The knowing is pretty important, but if you can't apply the knowledge, once again, without safety, you're still not moving. And so many times it takes a person or a situation to give you permission. God gives us permission to grow. Religion does not, by the way. It'll only let you go so far, and then you're like, oh, stay in the box. But God himself gives us permission to grow and come up out of everything. That was the whole point of Jesus dying on the cross, was to give us full permission to move ahead and get up out of the thing that was trying to kill us. Does that make sense? Yeah, so we've been talking about traumatic thoughts and how they work in the brain. And the base of that is either we've sinned against ourselves by participating in something or somebody else sinned against us. And as soon as that happened, it sets up a lie within us because trauma sets up. It traumatized us. It subtracted from us. It didn't add to us. And so in order to have something that the brain can't figure out, it'll always ask the question, why? Why did this happen? Why did this happen to me? Right? And then we've determined that, we ourselves many times are the one who comes up with the why. And especially if it's happened under the age of 13, it's not too brainiac of an answer that we give ourselves, right? But it makes sense to us at the time. The power of sin will help us to decide, why did that happen to me? Well, it's because I'm stupid. It's because I don't look good. It's because I'm not enough. It's because, we could go on with 1,000 different things. Whatever is specific to you that now is set up in your brain and in your heart that says, here's the trauma, here's the lie attached to it, and here's what you will battle for the rest of your life. That's not God's plan, right? We know that the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy, meaning the power of darkness and sin comes to kill, steal, and destroy. It's not his kingdom that does that. So his kingdom offers a way out, which means if you believed a traumatic thought all your life, just one thought, it's rerouted you in areas from where you're actually supposed to be. You were supposed to be heading this way, and the traumatic thought took you off the track. You derailed. And now it feels like, well, how do I get this back on the track so we can get it moving? Well, it's difficult to do because the lie will then say, you ain't going anywhere. You're stuck. We're not doing this. And so there's something to that. So once we know, and I rehearse this over and over before we get into any other information, because if you know the base of how sin works, it's just like you can unravel just about anything. You're like, oh, I see what you're doing. I see how I've been lied to. I see. And it makes it actually like, once you see and experience that and the truth is right there, you have options now to choose from. Choose you this day whom you're going to serve. Light or darkness, death or life, right? And we choose that. But if we only have the one option that just says, you're stuck, this is it. That's who you are. Remember, that's what was told you. And you choose to believe that. There's no other options presented. Now there's trouble. So sharing the gospel is good news. It shouldn't sound like you should be like this, and if you're not, blah, 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 blah. It should sound like, hey, did you know there's a better way? Did you know what God has to offer for you? Do you know that you can be forgiven and changed? Do you know that that's a lie and this is the truth? You could actually choose the truth, and it'll make you free. So it becomes that good news rather than, somebody talking. There's a difference between somebody talking at you and someone talking to you. Am I not right? Nobody likes when someone's talking at you. You're like, womp, 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 womp. That's a little puppet comes up in your mind and you're smiling, but you're hearing womp, 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 because you're talking at me. You're not talking to me. Because if you care about me, you'll be talking to me. This will become very relational. And I want to relate to you and where you're coming from, and you'll want to relate to me just because it's a relational thing. It's not I'm talking at you. If I talk at you, then it goes, don't want to hear. Now, sometimes people can do that just because they're like, I don't want any other options. I've tried everything, and I've been hurt, so I'm not doing it. But most of the time, it's because someone's talking at you. So we've been talked at. We've been talked to and told things that were very hurtful. And isn't it interesting that a traumatic thought can attach itself? Somebody could say something hurtful, and maybe it's not on a scale of like 1 to 10, it's a 10 hurtful. Maybe it's a 5 hurtful or a 3 hurtful. But what makes it so past 10 is that it added to every other thought that sounded just like it. Kind of like when you've been told you're stupid all your life, or the sensation's been there, and then someone just indicates a little thing now. They might just say something, and you're like, what was that supposed to mean? You know how you do that before you fight? What was that supposed to mean? And everyone goes, oh boy, here we go, right? Because that's that thing that says, all my files about stupid just came up and said, what are you doing? Are you trying to call me stupid? Is that what you're trying to say? And even though we ourselves believe it, and how do I know we believe it? It's how defensive we are. Right? So if you call me stupid right now, all you said, this class is stupid, and you walked out or whatever, it's not going to be by what you said, whether or not I'll go on and teach next week. It's about what I believe about myself. If I go, that's really unfortunate. Maybe I need to communicate a little bit better, but I know I'm not stupid. I'll be here next week. But if it's like, I'm crushed, because now that thought added to every other thought that was traumatic to me, now we're running those pathways in the brain that we're trying to escape from, and we're actually trying to run away. But where are you going to go? Because wherever you go, there you are. Here I am again. Here's that thought again. Everywhere I go, there it is. And so the only thing you can do is you can't outrun it. You have to change the thought. You have to disarm the thought. You have to speak truth to where the lie is. It takes absolute truth to dispel a lie. Have you noticed that? You can't tell somebody sort of a truth and lies go away. I mean, there's truth in it, but it's not the whole truth. And it's not, if there's a little twist in it or whatever, you won't get set free. There's something about absolute truth, and God is absolute truth, and we've talked about that. How do we know that? Because he is love, and there is no greater power. There is no greater truth than love. I mean, what do we have? You go to the best college or whatever. What's your greatest truth in here? They could say something to you like, well, by virtue of its puricism, it diverses metaphysics. So, whose life has that changed, right? Love changes everything. You can talk all smart talk, but love is the ultimate thought. It's the measurement of the heart. See what I'm saying? I don't even know what that phrase means. I just heard it one time, thought it was funny. So I always repeat it when I need that example. By virtue of its puricism, it diverses metaphysics. And you're like, okay. And so, but absolute truth comes out of love, and God is love. And there is no higher thought. So we have to have God to dispel any traumatic thoughts. That's why absolute truth is not religion. Because religion has man-made crazy stuff built into it a lot of times, rules that aren't in the Word, or taking something too far or not far enough, taking certain sections of who God is, but we don't believe the other part of him. That's like if I said about Sarah, I know Sarah, she's kind. What about the rest of her? I don't believe in the rest of her. I mean, think about that. That's kind of a crazy concept. You know, we want to be loved the whole meal deal, right? And we've got weaknesses and stuff. God's absolutely holy. There is no weakness in him. There's no shadow of turning, the Bible says. He is there. And that's why he's that measuring point that we lay our life against, and we know whether or not a thought is coming out of love or not. So we have to figure out what is love. And I've taught a few things at other churches where I've asked people, what is love? And then I like how sometimes it's funny to me. I don't like it, but I've probably done some of it in my life too, where you come up with the Christianese answers at that point. What is love? And you're like, well, Jesus. Oh, okay, but what is love? How does love act or whatever? It's loving. You know, these are people 50 years old and up or whatever, went to college and everything. You're like, ooh, that is really deep. But they're little pad answers that we have, but we still don't understand love. And really one of the things that purifies our heart is being required to love. See, if we can just go freelance, everybody can feel whatever they want. I don't care if I hurt you. You got to figure it out. You do you, boo. You know, that kind of thing. And we do that. And anything happens, and you just got to suck it up, buttercup. It's like, well, that's not love. But if I say I'm going to love people, what does that look like? That's where the little kid answers come up too. Be nice. Okay. These are all the little specks of part of what love is, but God is love, and to get to know him is very, very important. Get to know his character, how he would do things, his boundaries, and what he says about us. What he says about us is so important. Now, if you take God, throw him out of the whole equation, it's like, what are we hanging our hat on? The best of some person? Well, who's the best in this room? Ever think of that? Like, I choose Jim. He's been in the ministry longer than me, so I choose him. He's the best. He's the standard. Isn't that what we do sometimes when we hire people in churches? We're like, we found a good one. You know, and then you put him up front and everyone goes, yeah, that's our pastor. He's a good one. He has flaws. He's still learning to love just like the next person. Right? So the pressure of refining us is every time we get in God's presence, inside the church, outside the church, driving to work, whatever it is, love is there saying, I love you. I want the best for you. My forgiveness is here. My grace is here. It's right there in the vehicle with you. It's on your way to work or whatever. And so you're beginning to feel that if you accept any of that and begin to learn of that, there's also a requirement. Turn around and give that to somebody else. You can't take somebody where you haven't gone. And you can't give them something you don't have. So if we pick a person and we emulate the person, that's the person we chose, they're the best at love, you know, from what do we know, right? We don't even live with them, right? So, but what do we know? They're the best at love, then that's our standard. That's the top mark. See, that's what religion does. Religion says, I guess that's all the further we're going. And I think we're doing pretty good because we love like the guy we worship. Well, we're not supposed to worship anybody that we made a standard of, right? Anybody can mess up at any time. Is that true? Yeah. Yeah, whether you want to or not sometimes. You have a free will where you can choose it, but then there's the other part of you like, oh, shoot. I just really messed that up. I mean, you didn't even choose it. It just happened, right? Because we're imperfect. We've been touched by sin. We're in a wicked world. This is a wicked world. Hawaii is beautiful, but still. Right? Anywhere you go, there's wickedness. You can be on a beach in Brazil and be like, whoa. And just blocks over, the police are shooting children that are orphans that live under the bridge to get rid of the trouble in the town. Same city. Just like in this city, it's wonderful, but there's some wicked stuff that goes on here. So wherever you go, wicked is happening. So it requires us even more to, if we're surrounded by wickedness, then we absolutely have to resound what he looks like, or say again, or represent the kingdom of heaven. But if I don't know him, how would I do that? So what do I have to combat wickedness with? I got to find a guy or some chick that's got a high standard, and then we'll make that person, they'll be the person. We'll all just follow around like little minions. We don't have a person. We've all been touched by sin. We've all sinned and fell short of the glory of God, is how the Bible says it. So you could leave it there and be like, that's so sad. We're messed up. Except for, he said, but here I am. I want to have a relationship with you. I want to show you how heaven works. And you can bring heaven to the earth here by loving people and representing who I am. But you can't represent something you've never seen. This is really important to changing our thoughts. Yeah? Now, way back in the day when they had cassette tapes, and then you could put them in a little Walkman kind of thing. Before they went to CD, it was really, and then the headphones, it was like a big deal. You'd be out going for a walk or whatever, and you could buy those tapes that says, I am a good person. No God in it, but you just repeating positive things. I am a good person. Let's say I repeat that, and I sleep to that, right? Based on what? It never says. You're just repeating, say, I am a good person. Well, I already know that's baloney. Bible, without the Bible, I'm aware of myself. There's some junk. And without the power of God, it's going to be really ever present. And yet, if you're going around and it's quoting this and you're like, I'm just trying to think positive thoughts, stay positive. Everything's going to work out based on what? I'm going great places. Based on what? Well, because the tape said I was. And who made the tape? Some guy you paid money to. Tell me how to live. But yeah, we'll pay money for this kind of stuff. This is what's crazy to me. And the gospel's free. Well, we don't want to go that far. We don't want to figure out where we came from or when we're going when we die. That's too intense. Come on, lady. Right? So these are all things that really, you can go to hours and hours of counseling, and I am not against counseling. But if Christ is not in the center of it, then it's based on what? The book says. Who wrote the book? What are they based on? They could be axe murderers. You wouldn't know. Right? The guy who wrote the book could presently be in adultery on his wife. You don't know. But that's our highest thought. Our highest thoughts are pretty low. And so we have to go to someone who is higher than I. Higher than I. So if you go somewhere, if you go to a church and someone let's say that I felt like, you guys, which first of all, you didn't hire me, God sent me here. But let's just say the traditional way, like you all hired me, I'm the person. I'm the one. I'm the standard, right? And I started preaching like I was the standard. I've been in places where they'll do that. I have been in a place where the guy said, well, my kids were actually in a Christian school. And the pastor got up and he said, I've never once had an evil thought about a woman. And here's my sons are in the back, Like, who is this person? And you can be just like me. We're not supposed to be just like you. You're not a high enough thought. I'm sorry, don't want to insult you, but your max is not where we're headed. Right? So now think about it, because we have to disarm where trauma comes from. So you can have a really smart person. You can have a person who's a brain surgeon or whatever, but that's your friend, and they turn and say something really mean to you that traumatizes you, and you put them on that pedestal as a human being. They're the highest thought you have now. Say what? That's what we do. And we take in, we're like, that is the absolute highest thought. So, I'm less than them, and they spoke that, and so it has to be true. They're not the highest thought. See, we make humans the highest standard when we're the ones who fell short of the glory of God. Nobody gets out of that. We're really cute when we're born, though. Really innocent. And then stuff shows up. No. You know, all that stuff kids do. Stop it. You know, and they're hitting. My little granddaughter, she's 2 and they throw stuff, right? So she thought it was really cool. I just had a mirror and I sat it down. It's one of those flip mirrors that's like on a pedestal, but it's heavy. And I sat it down and I was taking my tweezers and different things and putting it away, and all of a sudden she goes, here, poof, and chucks it at her brother, because she's thinking in her mind, you know, here you go, brother. Poof, right in the head. So, I mean, we can do, it's instant. The inadequacy of who we are shows up, right? So his inadequacy showed up. What did that look like? Thank you so much, sister. I appreciate the bruise on my face. No, it doesn't show up like that. Your flesh shows up, and your inability to love shows up right now. And his instant was like, oh, and we're all like, oh, separate, you know. She just turned 2, so she's like, I don't know what I did. I don't even get this, right? So I'm just trying to show you the base that we have to have in order to disable or take apart lies. Because if your standard is your highest person, the highest book you ever read, that's why sometimes we just get full of pride and, you know, and it's like, I have a doctorate degree. So, sweet. You worked really hard to get that, and it gives you an expanse so you can help more people or whatever it is you're doing. But at the same time, still a lower thought than God. You can have the biggest degree ever, but did you die on the cross for my sins? I think not. So how am I going to get my sins covered by your degree? So when we're disarming thoughts that come out of people, and we all are capable of throwing the mirror like my granddaughter, or saying something really hurtful, there's always somebody who's postured a little bit in their mind like, well, my big brother told me this, and I've been devastated ever since. The teacher at school, someone in authority told me this, and I've been devastated. See how those thoughts get planted? Especially if we feel like people in authority should never be wrong because we put them there. Everybody sins. And we have to have that in our mind as the base, right? So then what happens is if there's a pecking order where we got the people who are close, so close to God, and we're just the losers here, then we become the victims. God never set it up that way. Sin set it up that way. And wherever you're a victim, what do I always say? Makes everyone else a bully, right? So if you feel like a victim at your work, everybody there is a bully. If you feel like a victim when you walk in church, everyone's a bully. They can just be sitting there, bully. Right? Because your inside says everybody's higher than who I am because the traumatic thought said I was less. So that puts me in a spot, y'all get to run me over. So I have to stay away from people. Anybody here ever do that, or you just started staying away from people? Now, it's easier for what we've talked about before, the introvert, to do that than it is the extrovert. But there's this safety thing that just says, I'm out. I got to stay over here. I'm the less than. And that comes through traumatic thoughts. So, I'm just catching you up by throwing it all together. So, we've talked about this here. It's been a bit since we have. But I'm going to do this tonight. So, when I've gone different places and I've asked people, what makes you valuable? Why do you have value? A lot of people will answer by what they do. You know, like I asked this question in the Pine County Jail, and one guy said, I bring home the bacon. That's what gives me value. I'm the breadwinner to my family. So, okay. And in the women's class, one lady said, well, I don't even know if I feel this way, but everybody values me because of my looks. It's always been that way. I can ask for stuff, and I'll get given it, and I know it's because of how I look. Sounds arrogant, but she was actually she was really pretty. She was like, that's my happening. That's what she's saying. This is what, so that makes you valuable. And different people went on, I'm athletic, I'm whatever. And so when you think about this, It's wild because does God value you because you can do something? No, he values you because you're made in his image. But if you don't know that, you'll think it's because of what you do. So let's say you're in a car accident. Now you're paraplegic. You're not athletic anymore. Something messed up your face. You don't think you're beautiful anymore. Now you have no value at all. This is where that sin-based thing comes from that's going on now, where we can kill babies really easy, but also we're talking a lot about let's do that with older people. I think their time here is done. They're not that valuable. Get them moving on, taking up time, space, and energy in this world. There needs to be more space for us, and we should be the ones determining that, right? Now, there's a time and a place where you have to say pull the plug or do different things like that. But I'm talking about there's certain places, like Grandma could live for a few more years, and she's talking and ready to do stuff, right? Could help you bake cookies, but she got to go. There's an attitude slowly creeping in on that because somebody, some people, some part of sin has developed this standard of like, we know. We're bigger than God. We know how this should go. And we determine who has value left anymore. Right? So our value system is jacked because it's been touched by sin. So the more that you've been criticized and something's been subtracted from you in your mind, the more that that's happened, you will see yourself like that. Now, God sees you as it was before. Value. Yeah, but I did this. Value. Yeah, but I can't do that. Value. He's placed a value on you. When did he do that? He did it before Jesus died, but man, talk about a value statement. When Jesus died on the cross and took on the sin of the world, that's the biggest value statement anyone's ever made. So, but we can still, greatest things like that can happen, but if you see yourself like this, that's how you see yourself. So what happens is the more we've been subtracted from, the less we can see our value. And so you'll ask people, and they'll give all those reasons. Well, I'm an athlete. I can earn money. This place would fall apart if it wasn't for me. I mean, all these answers about performance things when it comes to value, when really we have value because we're created in the image of God. Well, what does that do? We just are. God's the most valuable thing, and we're created in his image, so we look just like him. He has value, so do we, and he's the top value. So what does that make us? We're his children. We're pretty valuable. We're pretty valuable, but you can still be created. We're all created in the image of God, but you can see yourself like that. Right? He sees you, that whole word filled in. We see ourselves like this because of trauma thoughts. And so we've been created in the image of God, which gives us the right to be loved. Just like I just said, he is love. We're created in his image, so love should flow to him and back to us. And we should be free to give and receive love because we're created in the image of God. But what if I can't ride a bike? Doesn't matter. You're created in the image of God. What if I'm not good at basketball? It doesn't matter. You have value because you have value because you have value because you are loved. You're created in his image. That's what first gives us the right to be heard, which reinforces our value. Right? Okay, so what is one of the number one things about trauma? It hits your brain. You think about it. You're consumed about it. I can't believe they said that. I've cried for hours. I threw up. Now I can't go to work. And then it recycles. And for some people, certain subjects recycle throughout their life. It's so damaging because it's just constantly rehearsing how I'm inadequate and I was born this way or what's wrong with me. And it's doing that continually. Then it blocks us from seeing the image of God. We don't feel loved, so we don't feel heard. So the kingdom of darkness or sin loves to run it this way, and God runs it this way. I want you to see how valuable you are. That's part of building a relationship with him. And how you're created in my image. You're not stupid, like they said. You're not a loser. You're not born without a purpose. You're not the oddball. That's just what the world said when it was trying to subtract from you, so that the first thing is see, I hurt you. I don't want to hear from you. That's how the kingdom of darkness does, and that's how the power of sin does it. Shut your pie hole. Silencia. Whatever way it's going to come across, it's going to say, you don't have the right to speak. I don't even want to hear you cry. I don't want to see the tears. I don't want to know about you. I don't want to understand you. You just need to do what I say. Wow. And here's the thing. Someone who knows they have value comes against that immediately. No, I actually have the right to be heard. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so. I am the redeemed of the Lord, and I will say some things right now. And I will have some boundaries. But if you don't know that and you see yourself like this, you shut down. And then what it does is it said, well, no one's going to listen to me. That's what proves to me I'm not loved. And who is this image of God? I don't even know what God is anymore. I don't know who to trust. I don't know what to think. Because look at me. See, and it'll run it. Look at me. Look at me. Oh, kind of hard to fulfill a destiny when that's the cycle that we're running. So we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness in high places. The darkness of this, the rulers of the air, right? It's very spiritual, this thing that has happened to us, because wickedness is spiritual. And the things that subtracted from us were devaluing statements. Now, you can devalue somebody with a look. You ever come into a room and somebody just go, they didn't say one thing. We call them crusty looks, right? Even my dog can give crusty looks. It's crazy. It'll be early in the morning, and I want to feed him before I go someplace real early in the morning, and he doesn't want to get up, so he gets out, and then he gives me this like, get out of here. It's just this crusty like, well, if I had to go by that look, you don't love me at all. So don't appreciate a thing here. But what happens is there's something about body language that can speak to you that says, silencia. I can just turn just a little bit, right? If we're face to face and we're talking, all I have to do is turn like this, and I've already given you a message. I'm exiting this conversation, right? Look down on the ground, look up in the air. What were you saying? Right? When newspapers used to be really big, most people don't read them anymore. There's some that still do, but the look was always, the woman's talking, and then the man goes, shh, and he's in the paper. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Are you even hearing me? What? Now we got this from both sides and our kids. And somebody's got to do some kind of interrupt that says, hey, we're trying to have a conversation here, right? So here's the thing, though. Wickedness has even got us to go, well, I don't have value in this system here. I'm not heard here, but I am heard on blah, blah, blah. I got a lot of likes on blah, blah, blah. Got a few hearts and thumbs up. I mean, woo, I'm cooking now. Got 2,000 friends. Who can balance 2,000 friends in real life? So how close are these friends? You probably got 3 on there that are close to you, and the rest are acquaintances. So they're at the lowest level of friends, but that's what builds us up. But at the same time, we've been so devalued, we'll take anything we can get. And I don't have to do a face-to-face conversation. I can say nasty stuff on here and be heard. I can confront a situation and be heard. How do you know? People start answering back. How dare you say this? Or I love you and all this kind of stuff. I support you totally. And we're like, see, I'm so supported from the friends you hardly know. So at the same time, what we're looking for when we do that is I'm just trying to find some value. I'm trying to prove to myself I actually have the right to be heard and be loved. I still don't understand this image of God thing, but if I prove this, then I have the right to be heard. My desires might get met in this life. My hurts could actually come out. I could actually say some things that would help to release me from what I've been holding in for years. Ugh. It's hard. Sometimes the biggest freedom is when someone values you enough to listen. Now, you can't make them your answer. Otherwise, you just built a standard of, oh, that's that human I just hired in my mind. The one that, they listen to me, highest standard ever. We get into sexual relationships based on someone just listening for a little bit. He loves me so much. Was that the first person who stopped to listen for 5 minutes? And that's why you got in bed with him? That's how much we're searching for value. That's how much we've lost our boundaries because we don't see that we're created in the image of God. And that's something to preserve. We don't see the importance of it. And so then we don't have the knowledge that we're loved. Well, to know you're loved, you have to know who love is. God is love. And so that gives us the right to be heard. When you have the right to be heard, then your mouth is loose to say. A big part of deliverance is the say. People will be in a prayer line or they'll come to my office or whatever and they really want healing. They'll talk around the problem, but until they get to the heart of it. And they're like, I just feel like I'm puking this out. I don't care which way it comes out. Let's get it out. If this is the first time, especially you've said this, do it. Well, we don't go and just start. Here's what we do sometimes. We'll take the precious pearl type thing that we can't just say to anybody, and that's what we'll put online. And then the Bible says what'll happen with your pearls. Something that means a lot to you, something that even if it's a hurt, it's your, right? The pigs will come out and trample those things and then turn and want to rent you. And isn't that what happens? But this is our main avenue of communication. If you took all this stuff away, I think we'd be in trouble right now. There'd be a lot of deliverance taking place. Not because, this has a demon attached to it, because all of a sudden your avenues of communication have to open up to the way God created us. We're not robots. So then we began to feel like, even if I was wrong and I got corrected, somebody heard me and we actually had a conversation. It was awesome. I figured out what I've been doing wrong this whole time. Yes, I feel safe. That's because I'm loved. That's how God would want that. I've been created in his image. I'm his daughter. That makes sense. But when it's not, when this gone awry and this has been erased, well, now I don't want to hear you. I don't care what form of communication. I will block you online. I will cut you out. Now, there's a time and a place to do that. But some people are like, no one has talked to me for like a week, so I'm blocking you. I just feel like if people value me as a person, that I should get a lot of likes. And if you're not liking me, then I don't think we're friends. What was your name again? I mean, that's how deep it is. And so, I'm just speaking truth, okay? And so, when we can't see the value we have, we surely can't see that we're created in the image of God. So the first thing people say was, I don't know if I believe in him. Okay? Where'd you come from? The Big Bang Theory and the fish in the ocean and blah, and I'm a monkey and blah, 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 blah. It's so funny. It's funny. I'm sorry. But that's taking man's standard, which doesn't make sense. And you can disarm in a heartbeat. And it's putting it as the highest thought. Our highest thought is that we came from monkeys. Like, if we're so close to being the ruler here, like, couldn't we come up with something else besides, like, I come from monkeys? And they're still monkeys. Well, those ones didn't develop yet. You just need to understand, I come from the line that started way back, and those are the monkeys I come from. You see what I'm saying? It's like even little kids question it because they're like, what? Right? But we all have this God-sized hole in us that says, I fell short of the glory of God, and I am missing something. So you go to school and you get your brain bigger and bigger and bigger, but I'm still missing something. I don't know what it is. So that's why I drink. I don't know what it is. So that's why I try drugs. And then, I can disappear when I do fentanyl. I can disappear when I do blah, blah, blah. And does it matter if I die? I don't know that I'm going anywhere anyway. Don't you just go to the dirt? It's a lot to think about. And the average person doesn't want to think about that because then it brings up and it always touches the area. Whereas do I have any value? It touches that area. I mean, I don't know if I'd ever want to pray because then you have to believe someone's hearing you. It touches that area. Image of God. Have you seen all this? Huh? It's hard to keep this thing from stinking. This, right? That's how we think, right? And so, image of God? No, I don't. No. But God is if you see like an image, inside of that image is his character, and inside of the character is all the aspects of love. He has a plan for us, and his plan's good. It's good. Now, this world has a plan for us, too. It's been touched by sin. And the Bible says this, the wages of sin are death. You don't always get paid on Friday, but payday will come. And so the only way that you get out from underneath that is get underneath love. Oh, no, wait. I have to come back up to how devalued I am. If I got to get with this God, I better get good enough. So give me a sec, all right? I'm trying to, I'll quit smoking, and then we come up with all these things. We'll come up with all this stuff like, that should make me good enough. And where'd you get that standard from? How are you going to get rid of the fleeting thought that goes through your head that's evil? How do you ever watch a movie? Sometimes in the movie, within seconds, you're rooting for the guy that's the bad guy. You're like, oh, get him. And you're like, what am I doing? I mean, it could be that simple. It can happen that fast. Or, yeah, he's getting with that girl or whatever. And they're in adultery or fornication. But it's a fleeting thought, and yeah, I would never do that. We're always participating or being tempted to participate in something. And then what it says is you're going to perform. Your highest thought is, I will perform my way out of that. I haven't felt I have had any value up to this point. But somehow, I'm going to pull from the deepest part of me, the best part that's there, and I shall overcome and perform if there is a God, I'll perform for him. How'd that work out? Not for anybody that I know. Because love is a high standard. It's holy. It's who he is. And he's calling us to him. And what stands in the way many times is these thoughts that cause us to feel like, who's going to value me anyway? So a lot of times people will give their life to Christ, they're getting it, and they're like, I want that. Thank you. I finally found the way. Right? And a lot of people come to the altar and they'll be like, I don't want to give this a shot. Hope this works because you are dealing with me. So like maybe they got somebody, maybe that gym guy, yeah. He could probably pray with me. That might even send it over the top, right? He probably is in with God because he's one of those guys. Those guys. So when we see him anytime, we'll be like, Jim, how you doing? Now, so, to be one of those guys takes some work. And the more we work on thinking we know something, the more we find out we really don't know much at all. Like the monkey theory. Like how many generations are going to work on that? Yes, of course, we came from, and we're still evolving to this day. Okay, well, better hurry up, because I'm only going to be here so long. I don't know what I'm evolving into next. But I've been a human since I was born, and I'm still stuck. I'm going to be 60, and I'm still stuck a human. How does that work? But that's our highest thought. I mean, that's how you know how silly it is. That's how you know it's silly. And even the thoughts that are out there that are like, my body, my choice. You can make choices for your body, but you don't actually have the right to make a choice for that other person. See? So there's something to that. And if you did make that choice, there's always forgiveness. But you have to believe you were created in the image of God. And stuff happens in this world, and there is forgiveness. And you are loved, and you have the right to be heard. Sometimes we have a measurement of sin, and we don't even believe in God. We're like, that person went way too far. You know, like there's a chasm, like, you can go here, here, and here, but you can't go there. That's way too far. Right? And so because it's gone too far, you might not even believe God even exists, but there's still somehow we know that person went way too far. And then we got to decide that. But you might think too far was back here, and you might think it's way out there, and you might think it's over here. Now we're in trouble. That's why the new theory now is this. See, just talking to people on the streets and stuff, I'll hear this a lot. They'll be like, well, I don't believe, I'm just really spiritual. Well, what's the point of being spiritual, first of all? I don't believe in God, but I'm spiritual. If you don't acknowledge that you're a spirit being, and how did that spirit being get into this body? There's a lot of questions that I have about that. So we'll do that. So there's something about being spiritual, and then there's something about taking it to a level where we don't believe in God, but we're saying that even as I'm spiritual, I can see when something's wrong. With what measurement? Your grandma told you that? What if your grandpa was Hitler? Jake. First response there. That was good. Okay. Should I say it in the King James? Oh, dung. So means the same thing. But it is, it's like, well, what if that was your standard? You ever think of that? Like, I came from the worst of the worst, so I know when someone's gone too far. So here's the new thing that they'll say. It's like, there really isn't any wrongs and rights. It's really a standard of what we believe as we are being spiritual. Something silly about that too. But it depends on the breath a person says it in and how convincing they are. You're like, that's good, that's really deep, man. Or if you're smoking pot. It all makes sense. I mean, I'm not mocking, I'm just being truthful. Because you shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Right? But it also says make you free in the original. So it literally will, the truth will get on you and just make you free. You'll be like, I am free. This is crazy. Why? Because you find out we didn't come from monkeys. No way, Jose. And all of a sudden, it's just like, you know what? Yeah, but it isn't based in religion. And it's not the knowledge that is basic in this world. Because the basic wickedness of this world only has this high of a thought. Love is always higher. So, if you become a victim to these kinds of thoughts and you don't feel like you have value, guess what you'll do? You'll find a group where somebody, one of your friends, somebody will be the philosopher. And see, this is, the atmosphere has caused everyone goes, man, they're so deep. This is awesome. That's what I believe now. Based on what? I have no idea, but my friend is so cool. Kids do it, but adults are doing this a lot now. You're like, so you don't have a base yourself to figure out why you believe what you believe? Because when you figure out why you believe what you believe, it is the thing that will cause you to stand up against what you don't believe. And it's the thing that will say, now that's too far, but it can't be based in human. It has to be based on what God's word says and love. Let's say you didn't have the Bible, but you understood just some of the concepts of love, just like, love would act a certain way or whatever. You'd still know, that went too far. That was not loving. Unsaved people could tell me, people who are without Christ could tell me that if I got off the stage right now and just smacked you in the face and be like, I don't know why you're sitting in the front row, girl. Whatever, Dawn, and went on preaching, right? If that was the case and I did something like that, people would think, no, that's too far. Based on what? If there's nothing that gives us the standard, if we're not basing things on love, then what we're doing is somebody, whoever's the loudest, whoever's the most convincing, whoever talks the most spiritual, that nobody wants to come up against. We don't want to say, well, I don't believe that. Oh, you can't say that. That's hate speech. Because we're all supposed to flow together. I'm flowing no monkey. Sorry. I'm not going around telling my grandkids, yeah, you came from monkey. You're acting like one right now. But, it's like, I'm not telling them that, right? So there's stuff that is truth and there's stuff that's not. And if we go into this neutral mode, I like what Kenneth Hagin said. He said, the most dangerous person is the person undecided. If you're going to be wrong, then be wrong, baby. Do it with the best. But if you're going to be right, but don't stand neutral. Neutral is where the world eats your lunch. And so I'd rather be wrong and then repent and find out what truth is than just be like, I don't know, everything just happens. It's karma. And then most people, we talked about karma a little bit last week, but there's most people, I would say, if I ask them, what is karma? They're like, that force. That's on Star Wars, too. What are you talking about? Right? And so, can't explain it. Don't know. There's not a depth to it, but we believe it. It just happens. It just happens. So if we're in a just happen world, how safe do you feel? Because in a just happen world, there's no reason for you to talk and have boundaries. You don't know what's going to happen. Anything could happen. And you got to let it happen. Because we're all spiritual. Right? And sometimes religion will do that. Religion will be like, well, God's sovereign. You just never know. And I've said this before. It's like he's in heaven, sitting on his throne. He's like, let's roll the dice, see how it's going to work for Dawn. All right, she's doing good. He already knows. But sovereignty means something different than what the church has given it. And so those are things that have to be questioned. We don't question that if we don't feel we have the right to be heard. So if you want to make a church just go growth really fast, you stay real neutral about different things, invite everybody in, have good coffee. There's ladditives you can throw in there, big advertisement, great bands, all that. But we don't discuss anything that would make you have questions, nor do you ask questions. Because if you ask questions, that means you're being heard, and we don't need that. That would disrupt the flow of what's going on here. Questions have to be answered. And people have to have the right to ask those questions. And there needs to be discussion about the answers. And if we don't know the answers, I've had people ask me questions and I didn't know the answer. What? No, I didn't. And so what I tell them is like, let's find it. Then we need to go find it. You don't leave it like, it's mysterious. We just don't know, it's very spiritual. No, you just haven't found it. You haven't talked to the right God. You haven't gone to the right truth. You haven't experienced or let his word come alive in you. Because his word brings wisdom. Knowledge comes first. Understanding lands on that. And then wisdom will sit right on top of that. Wisdom says, I know where I came from. I know where I am now. And I know where I'm going. Right? And that comes from God. That comes through the prophetic, operates like that. But you can have knowledge, and not really understand it, so then you have no application. That's why we give speeches to our kids. I try not to do that. But I remember starting out, Eric got a lot of speeches, especially when they're like 2 and 3 years old. It was like they're just sitting there, and you're talking at them like, and you know why we do that? Because you're mad, right? And so that's a good preach time. You're telling them all about the whole thing, and this is why you don't. And they're like, huh? You know, they're not going to apply any of it. They're just like, Mom's losing her stuff right now. I'm scared of her. I don't know what caused it, but there she is. Right? There's something different. It's like saying this. With our kids, we did this when they were little. My younger two biological were born 14 months apart, and they were almost the same size at one point. And but they kept running out by the vehicles. And so you can tell them, don't go out there, you could get run over. And kids are like, right? When you get older, you're like, oh, I don't want to be run over by that big car. So we took, I think Vern took like a milk jug and stuff like that, let it bigger, whatever. You put it behind the wheels of the car, back the car up, pull it forward, and you're like, that's what would happen to you. That's a scare tactic. No, that's wisdom. This is where it came from. This is what it is now. It went the wrong direction. See the difference? And somebody asked me this question, you don't want to teach your kids fear. No, we don't teach out of fear. You teach out of respect. Respect is semi-bigger than me. I respect that. Right? If you have no respect for it, just waltz right out in front of it. You're bigger than life. No, you're teaching them to respect what's happening now. Don't come out. Don't scare mommy like that. And they're like, I don't know what your problem, right? You got to show them what the respect is for and what it's about. But here we are. We don't feel that we have much value. So which way do we go? Are we going to believe we can't be heard? We're not loved? And I don't get this God thing. It's crazy. People talking all about God and his love, and I don't understand any of it. But that's because of me. There is a God. I hope I make it. You going to roll the dice like that? I wouldn't take that chance. I'd start asking questions. I'd start digging in his word. I'd start getting with some people who know him. There's a difference even. It's not even that they know every single part of the Bible and they took it apart in the Greek and Hebrew. That's helpful, but overstimulating when you're first trying to get to know somebody. But I want to know somebody who knows him. Like, tell me about him. What was it like? Oh, man, he healed me. 7 years ago, he healed me of cancer. True story. 7 years ago already. Might even be 8. So I'm really bad with time. My husband's the date, and he knows what you had on. No, where I'm just like, I don't know, sometime back there. But it's been at least 7 years. And so there's something about knowing, too. I couldn't perform my way into that healing. Like, I better get to God. They said I had 6 months to live. I better get to God right now. And let's get as many people as we can, because he's not going to listen to me, right? So we'll get this, like what they call prayer chain, or we'll just get with tons of people and get it on Facebook, because the more people, the more he has to listen. He just has to. You don't have enough value on your own? Nope. Plus, I don't know him. I don't know that aspect of him. So you get with people who know him, and you start talking word as to how you can be heard, not what performance you can have. Because whatever you can perform is not going to cut it. What you got? What you going to do? I vacuumed the church. That ought to say something to God. He should come running pretty soon now. No, those are seeds being planted, but I'm telling you what, you can't manipulate him, and you can't cry hard enough to get him to move. Right? If I cried all day, heal the cancer, Lord, please, please, and I begged him, he values me because I'm made in his image. And I'm loved. And knowing that I'm loved says, oh, I don't think so, cancer. That's opposite of my Father's kingdom. I'm saying to you right now, you need to go. See the difference? But if you come down this side, I don't really have any value. I don't know. I don't even know what to say. I mean, God, please, please, God. Please what? I don't even know, right? Because what are you supposed to say? And then I don't know if he loves me enough, but I'm trying to roll the dice here. I'm playing Russian roulette. This is like, spin it. I hope I make it. And I know this is probably not talking about me, nor do I really know him. But then look at who I am. So the first thing that has to be established is that we're valuable. We are so valuable. He rejoices over us with singing, the Word of God says. Huh? I did that all the time with my kids when they lay in the crib. I'd sing over them. I still sing over them. Sometimes at Walmart, they're not really that appreciative, but especially now that they're adults, I'm like, oh, what am I doing? I'm in the store. But sometimes, I sing over my grandkids and, just because there's something that's oh, I love you. I just love you. And none of them, not one of them, is because they performed good enough. I don't even know what good enough looks like. I just need to know that I'm forgiven and that I was made in his image. Why is forgiveness so good? Isn't that a performance? Isn't you being forgiven a performance? You have to be forgiven. What that is doing is the power of sin is blocking our relationship. So what are we going to do to remove it? Like, get out of my way. And you can say that to sin. Get off me. Get out of my way. Go. But it's when we say, God, forgive my sins, which the word forgive in the Greek means a great sending away. Just like he just blows the power of it. And now there's no separation between me and my God. Are my performance, is it any different? Am I now a superhero solving world peace and I'm the most amazing person? No, same person, jacked up in different areas. I'm forgiven. And the thing that stood between me and that is gone. Now I have the right to say, God, I want to get to know you. And he gives us that grace. You can't perform to get grace. It's unmerited favor. He does us a favor. And his mercy endures forever. So he rocks all the way around. That's the good news of the gospel. Well, what does that have to do with the thoughts we battle? Everything. Because the thoughts we battle are built in the fact that we feel subtracted from. The thoughts we were talking about the other day, Lissa, was like you're going along and all of a sudden, let me take something from you. Just a little saying, little thing. I'll be taking that part of you. And you're like, hey. Oh. And you could have stayed there, but you're learning, I'm loved and I need to be heard. And I'll do whatever I can to get that back and then some. Amen? So there's something to it. You do whatever you can to get in that spot where you're like, I need to get to know him. This is why there was a difference between Martha and Mary. One of them was always busy doing stuff. Is it wrong to do that? No, because I'm busy doing stuff. Today we're unloading furniture. And there's stuff going to the dump, and there's all kinds of stuff, right? So that's cool. But you have to have the time to be with him. You're not going to get to know him by just working for him. You got to get up close and personal and spend time with him. And for people watching online, if you feel like, well, I didn't know that, or hey, maybe that's why I felt like there was no God. Because you only have the option of like perform your way in, or what? I got nothing. So there must be no God. And who would want to serve a God that's that unloving? It's like, what? You're the one cutting him out. He never cut you out. He's saying, come, all of you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Forgiveness of sins is ours. That's the good news. It doesn't pay to have church or a Bible study or any of that stuff, worship thing or whatever, if that isn't in the heart of it, because we're worshiping for what reason and how are our questions going to get answered. We don't have that standard of love. It's going to be, well, this is what we came up with. In our denomination, we came up with the highest thought we could come up with. Even, they consider us full gospel or interdenominational. So people are coming from all different places. We've had pretty much every kind of religion show up, right? At the same time, it's just a name. It's just something that just says, hey, everybody's welcome. That's where it's at. But if you say our denomination, we believe, and that's where we stop. You just boxed God. Love only goes this far. After that, it doesn't cut it. Love only heals this much. After that, doesn't cut it. Who decided that? I don't know. I think it was my grandpa was on the board of blah, blah, blah. And he used to, it can go that far back. That's our knowledge. That's where we're basing it on. And it's like, what does the word say? Who is this God who loved us enough to die for us? And then didn't stay there, and he rose from the dead for the forgiveness of our sins so that we could walk in this wicked world saved. When we leave this body, we're good to go. Not based on our performance. That's part of why I've been with people who have passed and they die with a smile on their face, because they know where they're going. They're just like, so good. And they feel so loved because they're like, I'm still so jacked up, but he loves me enough. He's taking me home. It's going to be awesome. See you guys later. And make sure you make it there. There are people that pass like that. They're excited. There was a story of a 92-year-old lady who the Lord told her, he said, on this day, you'll come home to me. So on that day, she makes sure she was in a wheelchair, but she makes sure she was showered. She had her hair all done up, and she's like, Jesus is coming. And her family was like, okay, I don't know if this is dementia or what we're doing here. And she just explained to him, I want to tell you all. She gathered them around. She said, I want to tell you something. She prophesied something over each one of them. And then she said, I'm going home to Jesus today. And they were like, okay, Grandma. You know how you do sometimes. And she did. And she just looked up. She smiled. Her head went down. She was sitting in the wheelchair. She left this earth. Now that's spiritual. Right? And she chose who she was going to serve. And she left so forgiven, but not performed her way in. That's the truth of the gospel. And so getting rid of traumatic thoughts, if you run it where you don't have the right to be heard, you're not loved, so what's the point of even searching out God? See, I don't have any value. This is the other thing, and we'll be talking about this in the future. The other thing is you will build a fort around what you think you have left. It's called the hardening of the heart. You'll build a fort on like, ain't nobody taking the rest of my value. I have had enough. You're mad. And anger says, I want something to stop. I want this to stop. I don't know how to make it stop. I'm going to isolate. I'm going to build a fort around. Ain't nobody getting in here either. I'm not doing relationships. I'll just be by myself. I'm a survivor. And we start having all these labels that make us really superheroes, but we're dying inside. Yeah. And we're dying to be heard. We're dying to love and be loved. And we want to know him, but we're refusing it because we have to protect what value is left. You see it? It's intense, but it's the good news. So now somebody comes with good news, and this is the fort around that, you might get shot at. You might be persecuted. They might be like, somebody's coming up to the fort. Stay away. You're not taking the last of my value, right? I know churches, they rip you off, and I know, well, you're in a mode right now that you feel attacked. But the truth is still the truth, isn't it? It doesn't matter how big a fort, it doesn't matter how many times you yell and shake your fit. It doesn't matter. The truth is still going to be the truth. And the truth is you have value to the full meal deal. But you see yourself as protecting these last little things. Really? Father, we thank you for who you are and the plan of salvation and how you set it up the best way. Because if it was our way, it would not be the best way. But you did it. You're the one. And so all glory goes to you. And you said we fell short of the way you do things. And we want to come back to the way you do things. But there's this chasm between that's called sin. And we don't want anything there that's blocking us from any part of relationship with you. So even though I can name the date that I got born again, which is what being forgiven and his kingdom moving inside of me and giving rulership over to him, I still, on a daily basis, of God, if there is anything, forgive me. Because I don't want to, I saw him, I know him just enough, but then I'm blocked in these other areas. No, it's a daily thing of like, just wash this out of me. Get this out of me. Get those thoughts out of me. That hurtful thought, the thought that devalued. Lord God, take down the walls of my fort. Oh, I'm scared now because I can't protect myself. Well, how well you been doing with that? Mr. or Mrs. Protector? Been doing a good job? No, I just medicated with drugs or whatever, you know. Maybe people will think I'm crazy and leave me alone. Right? Well, you take these down, that's called total submission. The word submission isn't where somebody bosses you around. The word submit means to come under their mission. Wouldn't you rather come under the mission of full value because you're created in the image of God that calls you love, and now you're heard? And that reinforces, like, he values me so much. I don't even know why. What a good father. Amen. Right? It reinforces that. But if you take the walls down and you feel vulnerable, then you get scared, and this is what people do. Then they build a stronger wall. It's a delicate thing. But it's based on I've been hurt before and I don't want to be hurt again. It really isn't based on whether or not there's a God. Everybody knows. If you were told tonight that this was your last night to be on this earth, I don't care if you say you're atheist or not. I don't even believe in atheism. So I've never met a person that, I've seen that said they were atheists, that as they got close to the end of their life, they were like, and I still believe that. There are some who do, but I'm not a big believer in it. It's always a alluring question. It's always a luring, thing, like, I hope I'm right, I hope I'm right. And as a pastor, if you're next to their bedside and they don't want the truth of the gospel, you can tell it when they pass. There is a struggle in their body. They are like, oh. And sometimes family members just have to leave because it's so traumatic. Because the only thing holding us here is this dirt and water. That's it. That's it. So, thank you, Lord, for cleansing us of all unrighteousness and reinstating in our minds and in our hearts, this is who we are. Without being perfect, this is who we are. And I don't want to take advantage of that kind of grace by going out and just trashing myself and going, I'm still valued. No, that's a different subject. I'm valued because I'm created in his image. So when you have to say no, somebody offers you something, I don't care if it's smoking pot or whatever it is. I don't care if it's a cigarette, which everybody thinks, not a big deal. It's just a cigarette. They kill people. Yeah, but it's still not a big deal. It's like saying, we're from monkeys. It falls in that same, like, what? I'm always like, what? And so you got to protect yourself the ways that you can and do good about that. But if that is offering to you and it's an easy, yes, I'm going to do that, you still don't see the valuable person you are. That's for somebody else to prosper. That's not for me. So I'll say yes to the trap house. I'll say yes to the whatever, the poor relationship or whatever, because, we are talking about me. But I would never, and the same people, you can be totally high, now tell me if I'm wrong on this, totally high, and just wasted. And then your little niece or somebody goes, I want to use some of that. You're like, no, you're not doing, you die. I rescue you and get you out of this hellhole. It's like, what? Which really says you have value, but I don't. Everybody knows that, so that's why I say yes to it. It's a value problem. Yeah? You see it? So what's the bigger, the drug itself or the problem with how we see ourselves? I would dare to say it's how we see ourselves. Let's stand. Can you find the song Refiner's Fire? We'll sing that before we go. Yeah. There's something about God, just like that separation between him and us, just burning that away, just right out of the middle of us. Just get out. I want full access. I want to be able to come boldly before the throne of grace at any point. In my hour of need, in your hour of need, the Bible says, and then tell him what you need. And he will grant that. But when we're separated from him, it's real difficult, isn't it? Did you find it? All right. Hit it, girl. Let's dim the lights just a little bit.